You're listening to WKDWradio.com, broadcasting from the EOC right here in the city of Northport City Hall. I have a very special guest, Fire Chief Scott Titus. How are you doing?
Great job. How are you?
I'm good. So can you give us a quick update?
Sure. So as Hurricane Milton is coming in, we're getting those outer feeder bands now that have been starting. If you're here, you've been seeing that a little bit. Those are going to kind of go on and off throughout this event until we get sustained winds. So we've had some times where we've had some pretty strong gusts and sustained winds. As you know, and as we've been saying, when we get sustained 45 miles an hour, all of our emergency services will be off the roads. We would encourage you, if you're on the roads now, seek shelter, get to where you're going, and stay there till the event is done. We're already getting, with those feeder bands as they come through, they're dumping heavy rain. So we're already getting street flooding in some areas. Some of that may recede and then come back again, and then may recede again as this storm goes on. But certainly if you're already receiving some effects of flooding, there's a chance that's going to continue throughout this event. There's very heavy rains with this. As I said, the winds are starting to come on shore, now. Through late this evening, we're going to start feeling, these impacts will just be increasing between now and then. So there's probably a little bit of reprieve between bands for the next hour or so at best. But I would say, if you're worried you need to evacuate, it's probably your last chance. If you can go somewhere safer to a higher evacuation zone or a safer building, I'll go ahead and do that now. Our shelters are not at capacity. So you do have shelters. If you need to know where those are, you can go online, you can go to our website. You can go to our Facebook page, Sarasota County. All that information is out there. So please, I would encourage everybody now, stay off the roads. If you don't have to, if you're in a safe place, if you are, I would strongly encourage you to go now. It's going to get worse from here on out.
So This is John Rawlings with WKDW Radio. Please tune in as need be for your updates on the radio. We are broadcasting on the internet only as our FM is down until hopefully after the storm, and then we'll be back up. We'll talk to you soon. And let's go on with some questions. If the citizens have any questions out there right now, please feel free. Do you have an update on the canal overall right now? Do we have updates from what's happening maybe up north coming down towards us?
Sure. So just a little while ago, we sent out some messaging to areas in the states, North Florida states, and southward along the Myakatchee Creek. The creek is near capacity, not quite there yet, but with these bands coming through, that won't take too much longer. So a lot of those areas are used to, in previous years, used to the flooding that they see. The messaging we're getting out, the reason we're trying to make sure everybody knows, and we've been kind of doing this over the days, we sent out a very direct, specialized message through the phone tree today to those residents, but we've kind of been preaching. This is a little bit of an uncharacteristic storm only because we're already saturated. So if you've seen and experienced flooding along the creek in the past, it's probably going to be worse than what you've experienced before because we're already close to capacity of what the creek is. So that's going to continue to rise throughout this storm, and then throughout probably the next 5, 6, 7 days afterwards, depending on how much rain we get to the floodplain to the north of us. So again, if you've had those issues, you have a short period of time to probably get out and do that. That's going to be complicated with storm surge that's coming in. Again, I mentioned yesterday, there's been a lot of discussion, and you see it on the Facebook pages that some of our residents don't think that we're affected with storm surge. We certainly are because we have tidal areas, and because Myakatchee Creek and the way those drain out are tidal, so they won't be draining out as much at high tide. And with storm surge coming in, that complicates it, makes it even worse. It pushes water actually back up into the system, which is why when they do the evacuation zones A, B, and C, hopefully those you all heeded those warnings and we don't have people in those zones.
Absolutely.
But if we do, again, you have your window is really short now to get out. We would strongly encourage you to do so. When we look at the flood inundation models, there's a lot of speculation, and some of those are based on the FEMA flood maps, and communities were built up from some of them from when those flood maps were put in. So it's very hard for us to say exactly how much water is going to be in those areas. But what we do know is those zones were called for evacuation because they will experience flooding.
So we do have Robin Sambansite that said she lives on the waterway. I'm not sure which waterway you're on, Robin. So if you'll type in, but it empties into the Snover, and she said it has peaked over. So that is normal for some of this stuff, right?
Sure. The canal systems are designed, sometimes to do that in street flooding. But I will say, if you've had flooding that's up close to your property in the past, Robin, I would take that and say, kind of extrapolate and say this is going to be worse. So if you have a question, the safest thing that you could do is grab some stuff quickly and go.
And that's off Americana.
I have to look at a map to see that system, but the larger systems, the Cocoa Plum, that's going to go up and down with some of the tidal stuff. They are still moving water through the system. I saw something just before I sat down with you, John. Some people were saying the canal behind my house is full. Well, again, yesterday we talked about how some of those canals go up and down as they move water through the system, but also with these bands coming through, that's complicating it and making it more tough. So they're still moving water through the system as quickly as they can, but that's going to slow down, and it's going to be complicated with some of the runoff of these bands as they come through.
And Albee Terrace in Northport, there's flooding already in front of houses on the road.
Yeah, I saw some pictures of that on Facebook. And again, our road systems are used as part of the drainage when we get this sheet flooding and we get, that last band that came through. I don't know how much rain I'm speculating, but I looked at some different areas. It's possible that we got, 2.5 inches in about 30-minute to 45-minute period. So you just can't, there's not really any systems that are designed to sustain that. Hopefully some of that will drain off a little bit as this goes on, as we get a break in some of these bands. But as they keep coming through, that's going to keep getting a little bit worse.
And I know that we are in Northport, and you're our fire department chief.
Yes.
Do you have any updates on our fellow citizens in Charlotte County, because we've got some people that are listening in right now and watching. And I'm hi Terry, and I know who you are, but hope Chris is doing well down there. So
depending on the areas of Charlotte County, I can tell you the inundation models for Charlotte County are really, really difficult. There's a lot of water coming their way. As you get closer up the interstate, it's better. But if you're near the Punta Gorda, the downtown area, I can tell you a lot of the fire stations there have actually been evacuated to higher ground until it passes. We looked at inundation models last night for Punta Gorda and into some of those downtown or Charlotte areas. And again, there's speculation as to how accurate those are. But when it says, potential for 9 feet, if you take away a foot or two of that anyway, it's pretty significant. So I don't say this to be an alarmist or be worried, but this is what we're in for the next 18, 24 hours.
well, you and I were here about 2 weeks ago, and it was a different feel. This is more sobering, I think, right now, isn't it?
Absolutely. This is a different storm. That's what we've been saying all along. So this is kind of the 1, 2, 3 punch. So you have storm surge complications, you have the high wind complications, and then you have the excessive rainfall complications with an already saturated system. And we're not the only ones experiencing this. Sometimes you'll see this and they say, this is a Northport problem. This is a widespread problem throughout our county, Charlotte County. All the counties that are on the coastline right now and inward from there are all experiencing similar issues and problems. So it's not unique to us. This is a storm that probably we haven't seen in 80 years to this area, and more than likely it will be the most significant impact storm to this area that we've seen.
And do you feel like all counties are coming together? How is that working out right now?
So yeah, there's a state emergency response plan, and that kind of works. We talked a little bit about that yesterday. There's a framework for how we request resources, how we get ready for things. We've requested things pre-storm, but a lot of those resources kind of don't get dedicated until post-storm, and then they prioritize them. They kind of do a triage system on who needs things the worst, and then they go backwards from there. So of course we have local resources and everything here. We've called back the fire department, we've called back all of our personnel. So we have 3 shifts worth of personnel, extra staffing, extra apparatus. The police department has done the same. So as the storm passes and we are able to get back to responses, tomorrow sometime, then we will begin to assess what our needs are in situations. They'll start pulling the trigger and sending resources into our area and working through that. So the cities work with the counties then work with the state then works with federal government. So it's kind of a big system of support. It takes a little while to get all that information out. But again, we have pre-staged stuff, asked for resources ahead of time. We feel confident we'll be getting the things that we need, but it takes a little bit of time to get those things. And then after the storm, if there are things that occur or happen that are unique or different, then if there's something we continue to use that process to get resources.
Well, Tropicare, I guess Tropicare is clear. I just got a comment. Reisterstown and Tropicare is currently clear, just so you know.
Yes.
Can you update us on the mobile parks? And especially, I know it's not in our county or our city, but it's in our county, but over our friends over on 41.
Sure. So, well, first I'll go back to the Tropicare. I drove Tropicare about an hour ago and checked. So there's a canal system that pulls water off the Magahatchee Creek, tries to relieve what's coming through the city. That was designed many, many years ago by General Development. It's called the R36 Canal. It takes you to the far west end of the city. Then turns down at the end of Northport Estates, between Northport Estates and Woodland Estates, and then it kind of runs down parallel alongside the city before it cuts back into the creek at the south end. So yes, it's okay right now, but what everybody can expect to see is the first thing that'll happen is it'll start coming over Reisterstown. It'll be coming in from the park there. That area along Reisterstown, south of Tropicare, we'll start seeing the impacts first as the creek rises more. And I can tell you that area in storms in the past, we've had sometimes, 6 feet, 7 feet of water on the roads. So I would anticipate that we would see that again and probably a little bit more as this storm goes on. But right now, yeah, tropical area is passable, but I'm not sure for how long. But again, it'll come across the States Drive first. It'll start creeping into some of those side roads, Beadla, and all those streets all along that are south of the States between tropical area and the States Drive. To the mobile home parks, we went door to door yesterday in our mobile home park that's here in the city. There's Holiday Park, phase 1 and phase 2. We went door to door a couple days in a row. We went through with electronic messaging, and then we talked to people. We documented, who was not leaving, and we strongly recommended that they go. But we do have a grasp on how many people have stayed, and so those residents are aware of what they might be facing. The other mobile home parks, especially the one furthest to the closest to the river up there, the creek. I think in this last storm, they had in the back of the park off of Blackburn, I want to say they had 4 feet of water on some of the roads back there. So they could expect to see that again and additional on top of that. So I think all of the mobile home parks in our community are going to be severely affected. And the other issue there is not just that storm surge and, that tidal shift and change, but the rain and then, of course, the wind that, most of those homes and buildings were not designed to sustain the wind field that we're going to see.
And so I've got a question. How bad are zones A, B, and C going to get in Northport? They're in zone D. They have a family member in zone C.
Depends. So there's differences in zone C. It depends on where they are. And again, the inundation maps are somewhat speculative. It depends. Some people are in a C, but their house was built way up high, so their house maybe could be safe, but their roads around them are impassable. It really is a case by case basis. So it's difficult for me to answer that. What I will say and go back to is our original messaging has been if you are in an evacuation zone that has been called, which is A, B, and C, we would strongly recommend that you evacuate that area. Again, as the storm comes in, it's gonna get worse. And even if you're in your house and your house is high and dry, there's a likelihood there's going to be widespread power outages for long periods of time, and there could be a long period of time before emergency services could get to you.
So we've got another question here. As far as the timing of the storm, it's still projected in between 11 and like 1 a.m., right?
Yeah, so again, these bands now, this morning's report as of 7 o'clock and then as of 1 o'clock showed, as we get closer, those times narrow. So tropical storm force winds, they were expecting us to begin seeing between 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock today, which they were pretty much spot on. We're seeing those now. After 3 o'clock, you'd expect sustained tropical force winds that would continue to increase in sustained plus gusts up into the hurricane force range through early tomorrow morning. And then we'll continue to feel those tropical storm force winds won't leave the area until probably sometime mid to late morning tomorrow. So again, it's gonna escalate from here on out and reach kind of a crescendo overnight, early morning, which will be the most dangerous time. And then it'll kind of peak and it'll drop back down.
Do we have a cutoff time for any of the shelters to close?
So when we shut down emergency vehicles on the roadway, those shelters go into lockdown. With that being said, if somebody shows up at the door, I don't think they're going to turn you away, but we would strongly recommend that if you're considering going to a shelter, that you go now before that period of time comes. Any
updates on hospitals and emergency rooms?
So currently, right now, we do know that Shore Point, Port Charlotte has closed. Fawcett Hospital has closed. That's put a pretty significant strain on us. That's going to cause a lot of our patients to go all to the hospitals in the north. They're already saturated because they've been sending patients from some of these hospitals that closed that were in flood zones and flood areas. So it's going to be difficult. We've got strike teams of ambulances coming in, and our primary objective there will be once we establish patient contact for a patient that's critical that needs transport, we'll probably transport them to a staging area, and then we transported by one of those strike teams. This is after the storm. One of those strike teams to a resource hospital. It could be as far away as Blake, but again, our resource hospital choices at this time will become less limited as they begin to reach capacity. Northport Emergency Room is still open, and we have been talking with them, and they understand if we bring a patient there that we've got to leave them there because we need to get back for other patients. So it's going to be the whole system's going to be saturated for a little while. We do have a request in through Sarasota County for an emergency DMAT hospital. That has not been confirmed and approved yet, but I know that that is in process. We did that a couple of years ago with the last hurricane, and we're not sure if it's going to be the same site location as it was before. It was at 41 in Sumter, but as soon as we have that information, we'll get it out to the public if it's confirmed and if they're going to set up there. But again, that would be post storm. So
I'm going to take you out of the EOC for a second. I'm going to put you back in the chief hat. Give us an update on how your department is faring and how your people are handling things.
Okay. So all of our people are human, just like you all. So, they have the same, anxiety as far as their family members, their homes, we talked this morning a little bit about, almost all of our personnel, if they live in the area here, they're going to have some effects either on their family or on their own homes or on things like that. And so that's, of course, on everybody, a big strain. Once they start going to work, our personnel are great. They're going to work and do their job. And once that passes and slows down, then they'll start putting their lives back together as well, while you all are doing the same. But it is a big strain on them. We've called back all of our personnel. We split them into 2 shifts, an A and a B shift, work 12-hour periods. We've increased our apparatus that are on the road, and we're ready to go. We've got high water vehicles, we've got boats, of course, all of our fire apparatus and our ambulances, and our special ops. We're ready to
go. As far as your conversation with the police department, how is that faring?
Fantastic. We've got great partners with our Blue family, and they're doing the same thing. So they're out on the road right now, trying to keep an eye on what areas are getting flooded, what areas are becoming impassable. As I said, some of that information, although it's reliable now, it can change within 15 minutes. Some of that water may be receding. We get another band come through, and we could have new areas flooded or added flooding to current areas. So they're still out on the road. They're working well with us. Our crews work really, really, really well together, and we appreciate their help.
And if you have any more questions out there, please send them in. Chief has agreed to stay on a little extra time to answer any questions you may have. We're trying to push as much information to you as possible. I know that we've been hit with some tornadoes down south. Matt Lachey got hit with a tornado in that area, in that region. Those storms are actively coming this way throughout the day. We have not been under a tornado watch here, I don't believe, in Northport, have we?
No, not yet. Although our whole area, they've been saying, be prepared for that. I can tell you just to the south of us, Port Charlotte, Punta Gorda, I think they've gone under 2 separate ones. There was actually a tornado warning in Punta Gorda. I believe they actually had a tornado go through. There's some areas to the northeast of us that had a significant tornado. And so the area that we're in that cone is kind of ripe for producing that type of weather. So if we go into a watch, remember a watch is get prepared, go somewhere safe. If it goes to a warning is take action. That means one has been specifically seen in the area where you're receiving that report. There is an active tornado somewhere close by. Seek immediate shelter at that time. If you're on the road and a warning comes through, take your car, drive somewhere as close as you can, shelter, get off the road.
So nursing homes, how are you dealing with nursing homes here in Northport?
So most of the nursing homes, they're required to have a plan. We have some nursing homes that have evacuated and taken depending on where they're located. We have some that are shelter in place. They have emergency staff that take care of them. So they have nursing care available. They have doctors available. They have backup generators and things like that. So they're critical infrastructure, and they should be prepared. Most of them, a lot of they're private corporations, so they have their own plan. They have sister agencies in other areas. So I know some of them have come in with mass transit and taken their patients or their people to another facility. And so we've been in contact with them, but they kind of have their own plan where they do these things, and they're typically only calling us if they have something of an emergent nature.
And you're here this evening, but you're here during the day, and I know that you've been very active already today. What's the overview for tonight for you in the EOC?
So we do kind of the same thing. We set up in 12-hour shifts. We have an A and B shift. My assigned shift to work and be in the EOC and stay in the EOC is from 8 p.m. this evening until 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. During that time, we'll be monitoring those winds because by the time I come on officially, we'll be in shutdown mode, I would imagine, and we won't have any emergency services on the street. So during that time, we'll be thinking about any unmet needs, communicating those resources through Sarasota County up to the state level. And we'll also be working on monitoring kind of the storm and conditions that are going on so that we have an idea that as soon as those sustained winds of 45 pass, we can begin getting units back out on the road. The first thing that happens when those winds pass, we have what's called Tfd teams, or tactical first in teams. They are the first crews that go out. It's police, fire, typically they have public works, and they'll go out and they'll clear all of our major roadways for evacuation zones and things like that. So US 41, Toledo Blade, Sumter, they'll go up through into Welland Park, US 41, all the major connector roads. They kind of all have big loops that they run, and they report that information back to the Emergency Operations Center. And once they have an area clear of the major roads, then we'll open that up and our emergency response units will begin taking 911 calls. The whole time during shutdown, we've got personnel up at Sarasota County Dispatch, which is the 911 center. Any 911 calls that come in during that time, they'll be assigning a priority level to those, and they'll stack and just kind of wait. So as soon as we open back up for operations and get back on the road, we have our personnel up there assisting with the 911 dispatchers to prioritize those calls and then send the highest acuity calls out first, and then we just start going down that list. We answer current 911 calls as well as going through that backlog at the same time. So as you can imagine, when you shut down 911 operations anytime for a period of 12 to 18 hours potentially, there's going to be a significant backlog of calls, and certainly during this type of event, it's a very, very large number is expected, and so it takes a little while to work through that.
So I got 27 years medical under my belt before I came to Florida, and I learned a lot through all the hurricanes we've been through, but I really want you to stress at 45 miles an hour, you don't go out no matter what, correct?
Correct. We don't. The problems are apparatus. It's just not safe for vehicles to be on the road. Even a regular passenger vehicle at sustained 45 miles an hour with water on the road, those winds can push your vehicle right off the road. Certainly, as you can imagine, our ambulances are higher profile. They have a large flat area, so if there's winds out there, they push those all over the place. It would be dangerous for potential rollover. Same thing with our fire apparatus. Even though they're heavier, that still exists. And that 45 mile an hour sustained winds that's not something that was made up here in Northport. That's pretty much industry standard. So everywhere you go, Sarasota County, all the departments in the county, Charlotte County, everywhere north and south of us. I'm not sure that I've ever heard of anywhere else actually that has a different rule than that. So, but 45 miles an hour, yeah, that's it. We're shutting down.
Would you say that if you feel like you need to go to ER, now's the time to do it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say too is please think about, we had a call earlier today, and there was somebody, and they had a family member who was COVID positive but was healthy, and they wanted to go to the hospital, and we said, listen, you can put them in a car and take them to the hospital if they need to go, and if not, they can isolate the bedroom to keep the other people in the home from contracting that, and normal flu-like symptoms. Obviously, if it's high acuity and they're experiencing dangerous symptoms from that, then we would have taken that patient. But we kind of shift from every day. And under normal operations, if you want to go to the hospital, we'll take you, because we try not to decide what's our emergency versus your emergency. At times like this, we got to begin prioritizing that and make sure that, again, we're doing triaging those calls and we're taking high acuity people, because the system's going to be overloaded. So we would ask that you consider that. And if you have the ability to get a family member there now, they're not feeling well, now would be the time to go.
Absolutely. So as this storm approaches, for those of us who have not been through this before, can you lay out some expectation?
So I will say, as I said before, it's been 80-some years. I know I look like an old guy. I got a lot of white hair. This is, a storm of this magnitude I've not been through myself. Certainly, we try and learn from things that have happened in the past, and we're not unfamiliar with the potential of things that could happen, which is why we order resources ahead of time and try and get things ready. But certainly, I think that we can expect widespread widespread flooding, we can expect widespread and long-lasting power outages. I pray that there's no loss of life, but I'm certainly there will be some injuries and some people that are really struggling and have a tough time. I think if we made it without a loss of life, we would be very fortunate, and probably take a little bit of divine intervention, which I would welcome. But this is a storm that we haven't seen before, and it's going to have a significant impact.
How often do you think we'll be able to give updates out of the EOC over the next 5 to 10 hours?
I would hope we could get information out to you, hourly. I can tell you, the things that we use. So there's officially, 1 o'clock, 7 p.m., 11 o'clock tonight, 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, and then 1 p.m. again. Those are the official kind of updates that come out through National Weather Service. And those are really what kind of dictate the kind of conditions that we're looking at. Our localized conditions, again, once we shut down, it's speculative because we don't have eyes out there on what's going on in the community. So as soon as it opens back up, those TFIT teams, when they go out, to help us kind of assess what type of damage we have, what areas are passable or impassable, and what type of challenges we have, things that we need to look to handle. So during the storm, during shutdown, there's probably not a lot of updated information to give because at that point, and coming up very soon, it's like if you haven't left yet, very soon, you're just going to have to hunker down, and it's going to be what it is. And you can just expect those conditions are going to worsen. We will experience a wind field of 100 miles an hour sustained for a long period of time. Yep. We're going to experience significant rainfall. I think the estimates, 8 to 12 inches. Some pocket areas could be higher than that, up to 18 inches. So that's a lot of rain for some that's saturated already.
As we know, because of Ian, our rainfall is not all that we get here. We get north rainfall, which they've been getting all day. And so that water, Chuck Speak is the master of the canals, and he will have everything working properly. And his public works team, they do a phenomenal job at trying to manage that water flow. All indications there, you guys have great communications with staff and where things are going well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I just talked to Chuck a little while ago. That's one of the reasons why we sent out the message a couple hours ago. Those folks in the States, even though, again, they're kind of used to seeing a lot of this, the extension of this and the timeline is going to go on, and the height of the water is potentially going to be different than it's been in the past and higher. So we want to get out a specialized message, even though people that have been there for a while kind of know that's coming. They do an amazing job. I can tell you, I talked yesterday about how much increased capacity they've had over the last, 10 years. 10 years ago, if the Myakatch Creek was at the level it is right now, we would already have pretty significant flooding throughout the estates and areas along the creek. Years past, we would have had, several feet of water on those roads to the west side of Sumter. Right now, they're beginning to get a little bit of sheet flooding, so the capacity has increased significantly better. But again, we are almost at capacity with the creek now, so it's just going to continue to increase and worsen.
So we've got a section in town that's newer, with it being the Welland Park area.
Yes.
Any suggestions for the Welland Park area? I know that they just went through that transition into flood zone, and they've got a different style wind coming off of there because the shearing. This is just going to be extra added. So is there anything special they should pay attention to?
I think it's really the same message that we have to the rest of the city. If they're in an evacuation zone and they've elected to stay, they're going to have some impacts. Now, whether or not that's impacts of water intrusion into their home or whether it's wind field damage, and again, there's the inundation models are showing that storm surge is going to have some, push some standing water up into that location. Now, will it reach the height of getting into the homes or not? Again, I think it depends on which model you look at, but I think there's a very good chance of that. What we hope for is that most of it stays in the streets. Streets are impassable if those people have decided to stay, that they're safe in their homes. I would say if you start getting water into your house and your home, my recommendation is shut off your breakers, get electricity shut off until that water begins to recede, because you don't want to have another complicated problem of being exposed to an electrical hazard if you have standing water in your home.
Fantastic. Anything else you need to add as far as an update for the citizens of Northport?
No, again, you can look out there if people haven't done so, but there's some things you can do right now, last minute before lockdown comes. If you decided to stay in place, fill your bathtubs, fill your sinks. You can cover those with saran wrap to keep the water clean. There's a potential for a loss of water to certain areas, and certainly even good drinking water. So I imagine there'll be more water notices that go out after the storm if there's areas of breakage and things like that. As these winds get stronger, go to a safe area of your house. The safest area is going to be those areas that don't have any windows, that have some bearing walls around them, and things like that. For some people, that might be an interior bathroom. It's small, it's uncomfortable. Bring a pillow and a blanket, get in the bathtub. Not the one that has water in it.
Right.
But even on the bathroom floor, you want to go to the core center of your home, into those areas that are safe. As I said, a lot of the worst of the storm is going to be through the nighttime hours tonight. If it wasn't probably loud and scary, you'd normally be sleeping, but I imagine you'll hear it. That anxiety level goes up more so at night also, because people can't see what's going on. You hear things happen. Your house is going to make noise. You know that something's happening out there. You can't see it. But if you've elected to stay, that's something you just got to take a deep breath, get through it. If you have an emergency, call 911, let them put you on the list, and we'll get there when we can.
That's the biggest thing. I think that's the clue right there, is to get on the list. Once we hit sustained winds of 45 miles an hour, and I know that I'll get an update on that, and I'll be able to get that out right away. All these things being said, have we done all we can do to prepare?
Yes, I think we've done all that we can do to prepare. We're one of the things that we have in the works right now, some people say it, some don't, is we are in the planning stages and design stages for a new emergency operations center. Certainly, as the fire chief, I'd feel a whole lot more comfortable if we were operating out of a hardened facility that was equipped and ready for a Cat 5. I think we may experience some of the uncomfortable things that you all are going to experience in the community with the storm. There's going to be water leaks coming in through the ceiling, and probably some seeping through the windows, and we're susceptible to flying debris here. This building was built quite some time ago, 7 years ago, I believe. And so it's not built to a category 4, category 5 storm level. With that being said, structurally, it's a Cat 3 for the windows and Cat 3 for the doors and things like that. So we could have some issues there depending on flying debris, but structurally, I think the building will be intact. But again, we'll be experiencing some wet conditions. One of the resources we did order is a mobile emergency operations center. So I think there's a strong likelihood that like many of you all, as soon as when the storm passes, we will be in the types of conditions that are not conducive to working and handling your emergency. So they'll be bringing in a mobile emergency operations center out to our parking lot out there. We'll move out there so that we're in an area that's a controlled environment that we can maintain and focus on the task at hand, which is emergency response and then recovery efforts.
So you're not saying this because you don't have experience in it. This building has already been through that, correct?
Yes. We went through this a couple of years ago. We had water coming in through the windows, and we had through the ceiling, through the roof. Those things have been prepared, but again, the building itself is not built to the category level that I think we'll see. We did, go through a long period of time with sustained about 115 mile an hour winds here before, and the building has remained intact. So I don't really have concerns about safety. I think the one concern that I have, and it's for everybody in our community, is the tornadoes. We don't have anything that's really built in our community that is equipped to sustain, a tornado.
Right.
Especially if you get a higher level.
Which is scary when you put those two things together, and they do come together a lot of times.
Those are things you have to pray. Again, same thing. If we got into a tornado watch here at City Hall, we would take everybody and we would go to a core center location, stairwells and things like that, wait for it to pass, and maybe some damage to the building. But our primary concern would be protecting life, and then we'll deal with everything else after that.
So, and I'll just tell everybody in Northport, wake up. If you don't think we're not going to get more storms, you're out of your mind. But it's time to wake up and pay attention when staff and leadership within our city say that we need an EOC. Let's work with them. Let's really support this, and let's get this thing done, because it's for the benefit. An EOC is for the benefit of everyone, isn't it?
Absolutely, 100%. And the city's been really good. The community's been good supporting us in that. We had to make some changes this year and move some things around to get funding. We do have funding, and that, as I said, that is in design right now. But again, design doesn't help us today,
Yeah.
but for future storms, it absolutely will. And we appreciate, our leadership in the city has been very supportive and understanding that that's a priority and a need, so that we need to be in a safe environment to operate, so that we can attend to everybody else's needs in the community. So that's one of the things that we're working towards.
Awesome. And you know what? We need it. And the more that you guys go through this, that design is going to get little improvements along the way, isn't it?
Sure. Well, that design actually, it's as I said, they're working on it right now. It will be up to it will be a hardened facility up to Cat 5, so we'll be safe operating out of that. For those of you listening that don't know, Fire Station 81 was damaged in the last storm pretty significantly, to the point where rebuilding it up to the code didn't make a whole lot of sense. It was actually going to cost more money than to tear it down and rebuild it. So that is also in process of planning and design right now. For this storm, we had to vacate that facility. So when it's time to come off the road, our units will be leaving that station. We won't have anybody in that station here at the City Hall complex during the storm, because that building is just not safe for this type of storm load.
And as far as staying safe, it is 2:38. I looked outside a little bit ago. I'm kind of cornered here with my wind block right now, but what's it look like outside?
So 30 minutes ago, if you asked me that question, I was looking out the window, and it looked like somebody was standing up above me from the roof and pouring buckets down. So a very significant downpour, which is why some people in our community were experiencing that street flooding right away. It was a large amount of rain in a very short period of time. If you look out right now, it's pretty calm out there right now. So again, don't let that give you a false sense of security. That was one of those feeder bands that came through, and now we're getting a little reprieve. We'll have another one come through, and another one will come through until we get to the point where it's somewhat constant. I think at this point, whether there's a jog a little bit to the north or a jog a little bit to the south, it's not really going to change our impact. We are solidly within the narrow point of that cone. I think at last update, it was coming through, just south of Sarasota. And so a little jog north, a little jog to the south really isn't going to change us. We are still going to experience significant, tidal impacts. We're going to experience significant rain, significant wind.
All right. Well, I appreciate everybody listening in. I'll be shooting out through Facebook, social media sites, as much content as I can, and get you updates as need be. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I know you got to get some rest before you go in tonight, but I appreciate it. Thank you so much. This is John Rawlings with WKDW Radio saying thanks for listening in. And please, please, please be safe. My cell phone number is 941-391-4663. You can text me any updates you have about your neighborhood, and I will get that out as quickly as possible to everyone also. And any questions you may have that you want me to ask the emergency operations systems here, we'll get that taken care of. Thank you. Bye-bye.